First of all, let's just have a huge round of applause for everybody involved in putting this amazing event together, please. And now if you stand up and do another round of applause. No, I'm not going to ask you to do that. That's my cheesy way of trying to get a standing ovation. It never works. So, look, we are going to talk about artificial irrelevance or artificial intelligence. Which one is it? Is it going to be that AI is going to take all of our wonderful marketing jobs? Or is it going to be that AI is going to augment us as human beings? But we're going to get into a little story first. And no, it's not the story about Deadpool riding on a unicorn. Thank you, Travis, for that. Travis actually mentioned me 9 times during his presentation. I feel the need to mention him at least twice. That's all I'm going to do. So who am I? I mean, I'm a journalist for VentureBeat. VentureBeat is one of those big tech news publications you might have heard of. If you haven't heard of it, I urge you to go and have a look. Also, I am the analyst for VentureBeat. We have a site called VB Insight. It's where we put all of our wonderful analysis. And the way that we do our analysis is kind of interesting. We've been looking at marketing technology now for 4 years. And Scott, has really been blazing the trail in terms of marketing technology, in terms of looking at all of those amazing products. Of course, as Scott and I have discussed many times, when you're looking at 6,000 products, it's really hard to go deep on those. You can go very broad, you can list them all out, you can identify them. Scott does an amazing job of going deep in terms of how marketing technology is playing out and how we're going to use it in our lives. What we do is we take little segments of that and we'll go deeper. So we'll look at, say, marketing clouds and we'll see how that's working out. We'll look at conversion rate optimization. And the way that we do it is we use small data and big data, qualitative and quantitative analysis. Small data for us is actually not that small. So when I'm surveying conversion, thank you. I hope my next point hits as hard as that just did. Thank you very much. When we're surveying conversion rate optimization users, we survey 3,000 of them. And when you consider that the audience is maybe just 1 million people, that's actually really statistically significant. When we survey social media managers, we surveyed over 2,000 of them. Big data for us is pretty big. So when I looked at the advertising world, and I look at the advertising world with very, very, very squinty eyes because of all the mobile ad fraud, but that's another story. When we looked at that, we had a data partner give us 16 billion ad impressions, and I can tell you, Excel doesn't handle that amount of data. It's a real pain. When we looked at the state of marketing technology, we worked with a company called Orb Intelligence to scrape the JavaScript from 3.2 million US business websites and align that with their staff numbers, revenue numbers, et cetera, so that we could figure out what people are really doing out there in the real world when it comes to using marketing technology. So we put that all together, we tell the story. Now, I heard there are going to be a lot of landscapes being thrown up on slides throughout this entire event. So I just thought I'd better squeeze a landscape in there for you because you won't have seen this one. This is the mobile success landscape. And the reason I'm putting this up is because the thing that I found over the last 3 of those 4 years is that really, unless we are using marketing technology to reach people on this device, we really shouldn't be doing it. This is incredibly important. I'm going to spend the first part of my little presentation explaining why this is so incredibly important to us right now. And then we'll get into artificial intelligence because the mobile phone, the smartphone, it really plays into everything that we're doing in AI, and you'll understand why as we go through. I mean, mobile is the most transformative shift in marketing ever, possibly since the invention of money. And of course, we're reinventing money with blockchain, with cryptocurrencies right now. Certainly since the invention of language. It's really stunningly important. In fact, we are getting to the point now where we're going to have 6.1 billion smartphone users by 2020. Think about that in terms of the population of the entire planet. We're talking about a smartphone per person almost. That's ridiculous. And Travis, I've mentioned his name 3 times now. I promised I wouldn't do that. He mentioned 5G. 5G is going to change everything. 5G changes everything not just from the point of view of the smartphone and all the amount of data that we can pump down through to it, but this year and next year you're going to see an awful lot of augmented reality in the world. And you as marketers are going to want to take advantage of augmented reality. The reason you're going to want to take advantage is because both Apple and Google have gone full in with ARKit and AR Core. They are bringing AR to smartphones right now. We don't have to wait for glasses that look like this, which will take us another 10 years, by the way. There's a lot of problems to fix before we'll have consumer glasses that are going to work and don't look like Google Glass, if everybody remembers all the glass holes walking around the streets. But that's 10 years away. What is right now is smartphones, and we are going to augment the world with smartphones. There are advertising and marketing opportunities within that augmented world, and 5G will deliver that, and deliver that to a massive audience, because there will be 6.1 billion smartphone users by 2020. The smartphone is ubiquitous. It is the 3-foot device. It's the device that's within arm's reach 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The average American starts looking at their smartphone within 21 seconds of waking up. The average Stewart Rogers starts looking at his within 3 seconds of waking up. I just want to point that out. We unlock it 200 times a day to use it for some kind of function. We probably touch it more than 600 times a day on average. And if you're wondering if I have the data on yet, yes, because I did a consumer study, and 87% of people agree that it is the 3-foot device. 91% of people within the 25 to 44-year-old age range, the ones with all the money that we want to get access to, agree that it is the 3-foot device. It really is the most important thing. Everybody has one, everyone's using one. We're using it to pay for things, not just through Apple Pay, Android Pay, Samsung Pay, or any other kind of pay that somebody wants to bring out. We're using it for m-commerce. We're buying things immediately on our phones. Amazon now own over 50% of all the first product searches on the internet. People don't go to Google to find a product, they go to Amazon. And then they go to their Amazon app because it's set up for one-click buy. So they just go click, 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 bang, and it turns up. We use it for social media. We use it to share my speech right here, right now, to the entire audience out there on all of your Twitter feeds. I'll stand here with my hands like this so that you can take a picture of me looking like I'm talking really, really eloquently. Thank you. We use it to play. Augmented reality, well, yeah, Pokemon Go wasn't augmented reality. At best, it was augmented video, but it got the words augmented reality into the psyche. It got it into consumer minds. We use them to play all the time. We use them to entertain ourselves. We use it to stream House of Cards on Netflix because House of Cards is less ridiculous than what's happening in the White House right now. We use it to stream our lives. We use it to share what's happening right now. Sometimes we even use it for Snapchat. If we keep on using it for Snapchat, maybe their share price will go up. Who knows? And we use it for retail. In fact, we use it for retail, not just for purchases on mobile phones, but actually 80% of people rely on a smartphone before they will talk to a salesperson. Because, of course, we don't like people anymore. Nobody talks to anyone, right? You've all been on the London Underground. You know how that works. 70% use a smartphone for research before they'll even go to the store. And if we look at purchases, well, people are making purchases all the time. They're making multiple purchases on their smartphones. We've reached the tipping point this year where mobile traffic for retailers is actually usurping desktop. And that is kind of crazy. That's a huge amount of traffic. In terms of purchases, mobile actually influenced $500 billion worth of sales in the United States alone in 2016, and $140 billion of that was m-commerce sales. People actually purchasing stuff on the smartphone rather than using it for influence, rather than using it just for example, research. When you're in the store looking at a product, looking at the reviews. Reviews have become incredibly important, especially on smartphones. That's why all of the review sites were among some of the first to become mobile-first, mobile-friendly, and make sure that everything that they're doing works beautifully on a smartphone, because they know how incredibly important the smartphone has become when it comes to leveraging consumers, when it comes to helping them make the right decisions when they're in an in-store environment. You still go and you go to the store at the moment because you want to touch and feel the product and you want to really check it out for yourself, but you're doing your research on your smartphone. And in terms of will people spend less money on their smartphones in 2017, only 12% of consumers said yes, that they're going to spend less in 2017. Everybody else is going to either spend the same or more using their smartphone. So we are in a situation where, according to Adobe research, that tipping point in retail has hit. Next year, it will go swinging way over the scale because mobile will drive pretty much everything in terms of revenue and traffic. So let's talk about artificial intelligence and how this plays into the smartphone story. Because the thing with the smartphone is, you might think of it in terms of it being a mobile browser. The fact that I just took this out of my pocket was actually registered, because there are accelerometers inside this thing, and it knows that I just did something with it. It knows that it's not against my body right now. It knows because the little camera isn't actually covered by my inside pocket. It knows that I'm now walking very slowly across the stage with purpose, as if I'm giving some kind of keynote. It knows when I'm cycling, it knows when I'm driving. It knows when I've stopped driving, and it puts a push pin on the map to say, this is where your parking position was, because of all of the information that we're getting from the smartphone, for all the little sensors that we have within this thing. What's really interesting about that is when you have an app, or when you have a mobile website, and you ask permission of a consumer, you ask permission, for example, to use their location services. If you're asking for fine location, you're getting all of that accelerometer data as well as GPS data, as well as Wi-Fi data, because all of that makes up positioning information, all of that makes up fine positioning information inside the smartphone. If you're getting all of that information, it means you can use it. And that is kind of a scary thing, because as marketers, we have to be really, really careful how we use all of that data, all of that information, because we don't want to have situations where we have the uncanny valley problem, or where we have situations where we upset our customers because maybe we guess things that we shouldn't guess. I mean, it's a tired old one, but everybody remembers when Target sent a letter to a household to say congratulations on your forthcoming child, to a girl that was actually 15 years old, and it was her father that opened it. And it turned out she was actually pregnant, and they had all of the data to make that determination. So as marketers, have to be very, very careful how we use this information going forwards, and we have to be very careful what we do with it. And artificial intelligence really is part of a bigger cognitive computing story. When people talk to me about AI, sometimes they are talking to me about AI. Sometimes they're talking to me about machine learning. The way I like to explain the difference between machine learning and AI is that machine learning looks at lots and lots and lots of data, including all that data that we're collecting from smartphones, and it finds patterns in the data, and then we can apply that pattern to other data to try and predict what the future looks like. Artificial intelligence is different in that the pattern automatically changes until we get the best possible outcome. That's what AI is attempting to achieve versus machine learning. Data mining is a part of the cognitive computing story because we need to train all of our systems, and data mining is an important part of that, and so is statistics. The cognitive computing marketplace itself is blowing up. It's absolutely massive. There's a compound annual growth rate of 38%. We're expected to reach 12.5 billion in 2019 in terms of companies involved in cognitive computing right now. Now, how are we collecting all this data, and what are we doing with it? Well, Google, of course, have a self-driving car. There's a reason why Google is building a self-driving car. There's a reason I'm not going to leave the picture of the Google self-driving car up on the screen, because god damn, that is an ugly, ugly thing, isn't it? I mean, I don't know about you, but it just looks like an anemic policeman's helmet from the 1950s. Let's put a Tesla up on the screen instead. Not that I'm a massive fan of Teslas, but that, again, is another presentation. Let's not go there. What's really interesting about what these people are doing, what Google are doing with self-driving cars, what Tesla are doing with self-driving cars, they have different reasons for going down this route. With Google, for example, it's the last place that they can actually get access to additional advertising revenue. You cannot be advertised to if you are driving, because that is distracting. It's also against the law. If you're not driving, you can sit there and just be advertised to all the time. And so, hence, self-driving car. It's a great play from Google. Terrible design, great play. But what Tesla is doing is Tesla is using machine learning and artificial intelligence with millions upon millions of miles of data. They have collected, at the end of 2016, 780 million miles of real human driving data. They're currently collecting 1 million miles every 10 hours. What that's doing is that is informing their autopilot system. So for example, I took a Tesla Model X from Los Angeles airport to Palm Springs a few months ago. And what the service is, it's called Tesloop. You get in it, it's really, really cost effective. You buy a seat inside a Tesla Model X, and they drive you out of the city center, but when they hit the freeway, they hit autopilot. And then the Tesla drives itself to Palm Springs. And then when they get to Palm Springs, they take control again. That autopilot system learns. It gets better and better and better with every 2 weeks, because there's a download. And those downloads are from the collection of millions of miles of real human driving data, which it is then machine learning, and it is then using artificial intelligence on to get to the best possible driving system. That's why they're doing that. That's their motivation. Google is taking artificial intelligence incredibly seriously, and they're actually putting it into every possible product, service, and system. But if you've ever looked at any of Google's quarterly results, you'll realize that every possible product, service, or system has got anything to do with advertising and pretty much nothing to do with anything else. So what you can bet is that almost every single one of the 2,700 plus deep learning and artificial intelligence products that Google is working on is really designed to get more money from consumers and more money from advertisers and publishers. It is the engine that drives everything in terms of you are interested in this, so therefore we're going to recommend that. It is the engine that drives the right advertisement in the right place at the right time on the right device just when you need it. It's the system that's going to take advertising by storm, because what we're going to do is we're going to take advertising from a throw it against the wall and see what sticks situation through to something that looks like Google Assistant and acts like Google Assistant. So what you're going to get is an artificially intelligent advertisement that is really trying to be as helpful as is humanly possible to you, and you're going to be suckers and you're going to go, yes, that's really helpful, I'll give you my money, thank you very much. You'll see it with Google Lens coming up very, very soon. There's previews right now which you might have within your Google Photos, whereby you'll take a photograph of the Hammersmith Apollo. I know it's not called the Hammersmith Apollo anymore, don't correct me, I don't want to give the sponsor any airtime. But you'll take the Hammersmith Apollo, you take a photograph of the outside, it will say sleigh bells are playing, and what it will do is it will know from location-based services that you're standing right outside the Hammersmith Apollo. It knows sleigh bells because it can turn the image into text. It'll slide up a little box at the bottom that says buy tickets, you click, you buy the tickets, you walk through the door. That's what Google is playing at. That's what artificial intelligence is driving through image recognition and a combination of that and location-based services. And so we're actually putting artificial intelligence into everything. My Android Wear 2 watch has Google Assistant built into it. It has artificial intelligence inside it. So with all of these things, we then look at the marketing aspects of these. And I know I've dropped lots of marketing ideas in terms of what AI is going to be doing, but let's drill deeper into that. The Internet of Things is going to make a huge difference. We are going to have every device connected to the internet at some point in the not too distant future, and there will be marketing opportunities within all of those connected devices. Yes, even your connected refrigerator, which is an idea that none of us have actually felt very, very strongly about for a very long time. They've been trying to force internet fridges on us for years and we've not bought them, but maybe we're getting to the point where they actually make sense now. Certainly what makes sense is what you can buy right now. You can buy an Amazon Echo finally in the United Kingdom. It did take them 11 months to get it across the pond, but that's what Amazon do. You can buy Google, and they've got the mini home as well as the home device. You have Siri on your Apple devices. You have Bixby on Samsung devices. You have all of these artificial assistants. You've got all sorts of additional smart speakers coming. Sonos have done deals, and so on and so forth. Even Apple are getting into the high-end speaker system, so they'll have a artificially intelligent speaker that actually has the same chip inside it that a professional MacBook has. These things are changing the way that we should be doing marketing, because this is a conversational device. This is something where you ask it a reasonable question in English and it has to work out what you said using natural language processing. The ones that are real AI also use natural language understanding to understand the context of what you say next. So a good difference between NLP and NLU is an NLP system will allow you to say, how high is Tom Cruise? And of course the answer will come back, not very bloody high. But If you go to NLU, what you can say is, what color is his hair? And it will know you're still talking about Tom Cruise because it understands context. Standard NLP systems don't do context. Standard NLU systems do. And something like Google Assistant has NLU as well as NLP and really understands context and can carry on a conversation and give you reasonable answers. Now, what does that do for SEO? We had a fantastic presentation on SEO earlier. There is a really good chance that artificial intelligence will replace most SEO consultants, certainly in terms of 80% of their jobs, because, unfortunately, a machine can change things, rewrite headlines, subheads, it can do all of the linking for you, and then it can test the effects on SERPs again and again and again and again until it gets the best possible result. But it also means you, as marketers, have got to think about real conversations and not just keywords. It's not about keywords anymore. It's about what somebody might say to a machine in order to get to your product or service. And of course, AI, we've seen it in the chatbot world already. Now, what we've seen in a lot of chatbots is this kind of thing, not AI at all. This is what we call decision tree. It's kind of like one of those choose your own adventure books that you used to play with, but it's just a digital version of that. It's giving you options and you choose them. But we do now have some really, really powerful artificially intelligent chatbots that are working very, very hard, especially in customer service, and we'll talk about that in a minute. I think the key thing is, are people actually buying stuff through chatbots? Because we've been talking about chatbots for ages. Facebook opened up their API back in April 2016, and since then, we've had an influx of them. There are hundreds of thousands of chatbots on Facebook Messenger alone. What's really interesting is that almost 50% of people have made a purchase using a chatbot. That purchase was probably the Domino's pizza that Scott talked about this morning, because Domino's launched their chatbot, and I have to admit, I went straight in there and got myself a pepperoni special. But the interesting thing is, actually a reasonable segment of people have bought more than once using chatbots, and that is a good indicator. We do have some interesting things going on, in fact, in apps in general, because it turns out that we've already gone way past the tipping point where messaging apps are now used more than any other kind of app. And it's within those messaging apps that we are driving the initial beachhead of artificial intelligence, because all of the chatbots are available not just on Facebook Messenger, but in Kik and in Telegram and so on and so forth. In fact, it's only WhatsApp that is holding back in terms of opening up an API. You can do chatbots in WhatsApp, but I wouldn't recommend it because they're unofficial and they will shut you down. There is a problem with chatbots, though, and this is something that we as marketers need to deal with. If we're going to win in a world where artificially intelligent chatbots are going to drive our customers to buy things, we've already seen they will buy things, we have to fix the engagement issue. When I asked chatbot users whether they would use the app, the mobile web, or the chatbot first as their primary point of conversation with a brand, only 17% of them said they'd use the chatbot. Reason for that? Well, techies make chatbots, and I'm going to be honest with you, and I can say this, I started out life as an independent video game developer. Techies aren't very good at talking to people. They're not really good at building scripts that actually engage and cause any kind of emotional response. That's why in Hollywood now you can get a job as a chatbot scriptwriter. It's true, you can actually do that job. But please get somebody who writes stories professionally, somebody who's a storyteller, to write your chatbot scripts, because it makes a difference. Where else is AI going to turn you into a superhero as far as marketing is concerned? Well, AI does some really interesting things when you run it across your churn data. This line that you see screaming across the page is standard regression analysis. And if we use standard regression analysis on our churn, what it tells us is that we should maybe start communicating with people somewhere along the journey, because that's where they're likely to churn. And that's about as good as it gets when you use regression analysis. So we might say, okay, the tipping point for us is maybe 6 weeks into the life of the product. We better get in touch with people just to make sure they don't leave us. But when you apply machine learning and artificial intelligence to your churn data, you see these topographical peaks. And what you see there is actually there is a point right at the beginning of the purchase cycle when they've just bought it, where they might actually churn, and there's a high chance of them churning. So you might want to send them a communication right there and then to help them on board, because that's a place where you're losing them. And if you want a good example of that, it's Twitter. One of the reasons that nobody really understands Twitter in terms of the general populace, and one of the reasons they're having problems with their growth, is because they don't have a good onboarding program. People don't really know what Twitter is for when you talk to non-technical people. We all know what it's for. Go and talk to somebody who is running a forestry and see if they understand what Twitter is for once they sign up for it. Onboarding is incredibly important. You can see all of these different peaks at all these different places that will help you create marketing communications to keep people, and therefore, you know, we all know the adage, it's easier to keep people than it is to get new customers, right? It's much, much cheaper, it's much more effective. People like Yelp are using it in lots of really interesting ways. They use artificial intelligence for image recognition to understand the difference between food and drink and outdoors and indoors shots. And then they use it again to understand what you like. And then when you're looking at Yelp, they show you the picture of the thing they think you like the most up front and center using artificial intelligence in 2 ways combined. You know, that's the kind of thing you can do right now. And none of this needs any custom programming. This is all out-of-the-box AI solutions that you can dive into. All of the APIs are available for things like image recognition right now. You can use it, as I said, for SEO. And what's really interesting about products like Rank Science is that they will do hundreds and hundreds of changes and tests, and they will look at the results of that until they get the best possible mean result. And once they've got the best possible mean result, that piece of content sticks as is, and then it moves on to the next. In fact, you know, it's doing all of those changes behind the scenes again and again and again, hundreds of times. And of course, we can't do that as human beings. We just can't make that many A/B split tests and changes and then measure the results in any kind of reasonable way unless we've got a team of hundreds of people. But where AI is really, really making a difference and where you need to tie your marketing and your customer service teams together is in the world of customer service. And you know, KLM gave us this photograph to use for this segment. I personally think it looks a little sinister. It's a bit like Jaws just coming out of the clouds. But they have 150 social media support reps. Those 150 social media support reps used to just monitor all of the channels, and if you said, oh, I had a really bad experience on KLM, they'd dive in and they'd look after you. If you said I had a really good experience on KLM, they'd dive in and they'd look after you. In terms of retention revenue and additional ticket sales, they generate $25 million per year without AI. That's $166,666 revenue per employee. Hands up if you'd like every employee to make that much money in your business. Yeah. So that's pretty impressive. What they're doing now is they're using artificial intelligence to answer automatically, as if it's a human being, the most menial questions that are available. And so when it gets through to an actual human being, the human being is answering the complex questions, and they're being super emotionally connected with that person. Now, what that does is 2 things. Not only does it allow them to actually answer more support social media messages than ever before, the people in customer services are more engaged and are doing a nicer job. They're not answering the same question again and again and again and again. They're answering much more complex, interesting questions. As a result, they stay. And as you know, when you employ somebody, you're not just talking about their wages, you're talking about onboarding them, getting them trained up, et cetera, et cetera. It costs a lot of money to keep bringing people on. And in customer services, it's like going around a revolving door sometimes. People come, they go, they come, they go. If you can engage your employees by augmenting them and making their job more interesting, they're more likely to stay, you save money, you increase your profits. And that is really the answer to whether artificial intelligence is going to take your jobs or whether it's going to augment your jobs. If you look at someone like Tencent, they are using AI to augment people's lives. If you look at KLM, they're using AI to augment people's lives. They're doing more with artificial intelligence, they're doing it faster and better, but they're also improving the satisfaction of their employees and making the job more interesting for those people. They're able to handle more than they've ever done before, and therefore they're able to make more money. If you look at someone like Xiaomi, they're using AI to replace jobs. They've actually reduced their customer support teams massively using artificial intelligence, and it is bots that are answering a lot of the questions. And that is the real answer. It's not a data-driven answer. After all the data I've given you, the answer to whether artificial intelligence is going to take your job or not is really down to how autocratic your manager is. If they're the kind of person that looks at the profit and loss and always sees that the wages and salaries is the highest number and decides to use a bot to replace those jobs in order to reduce costs, then that is the answer, and that's what's going to happen. So the answer generally is make sure that you're working for the right company, and then AI won't take your job. Thank you very much.